So the title of the show is Honey, You're Caving In. My main concern with the title is that I wanted people to humanize and also empathize the work and the paintings, because especially, I guess initially a lot of people through media, they see it on their screens and they assume it's hyper-realist and they see that it is meat, and so they have a lot of assumptions about the work. Initially, I kind of naively included it actually in a painting, and I was just fascinated at how it would deconstruct different contexts or ideologies. Like when you positioned it, say, alongside a dead insect, you would then be like, what's the difference between its state and that state of a dead insect? Or alongside metals, and then you're deconstructing like these honorary systems and value systems. It was just so filled within itself. I just kind of became fascinated. And then I started kind of delving into it more, I guess, with ontological intrigue and its state of being. Where is that borderline kind of very abject position? It brings up those discussions that we don't want to socially discuss. It's animal, it is like us, it's a reminder of our mortality, our inevitable end, I guess, but it's embracing within that. So its state, its skin has been removed, so it's very much those cliche sayings of we're all skin and bone, which I love, but its skin's been removed, and so how we usually categorise past judgment of the other is then taken away. So it's a space of commonality where we can all start talking about other social concerns that have to do with, yes, meat, but also anything else. You can reposition it. That's the base of my discussion and what I'm really interested in. And then you can start really looking at any kind of other context, I guess. So the work, that was the initial with some of them, your meat mounds, like your primordial goddess, or the seeing itself, the works within these shows, they're the choreographed meat mounds that are just reflective, meditative, and sitting in that state. And then you have some of the other works within the show, which you start to experiment with, even just the flesh on flesh as well. And that was something that's really interesting. So I'm in my studio and I just wanted to understand, I'm trying to understand, well, what it is to be alive, to exist at a basic state, through something which is so constructed as well. So I started in my studio squishing the meat into myself and my own flesh, and that's when these really interesting discussions I found started to evolve out of the work. And then you really start paralleling, say, how we value meat and the body, how we value body in general. So paralleling our body as labour force, that's how we're socially wider kind of valued in context. And meat as well, which is how we value something to consume, so ultimately the body's value and position within society. So there's lots of different discussions, and it's fascinating. There's so much to it, like animal as well, reminding you of our exploitation of nature, calling you out, being like, I'm here, I'm looking at you unapologetically, authentically, sitting in myself. How were you different to me? But my state is because of you as well. It was your hand in that exploitation that got me here. But even though it seems like it's very confronting as well, and I think it is for a lot of the viewers, at the end of the day it's going, I know that this is a truth, a common truth that we all have to sit with, so it's trying to actually embrace you, in a motherly way. And that's what the title is, it's like, honey, I'm here for you. Honey, yes, I'm caving in, you're caving in, but let's sit here and talk about it, because we can't progress and concern anything else, yeah. So it's my value systems, I guess my moral and value systems at the end of the day. With the piece, I Will Feed and Clothe You, that is in the show. Initially that was quite, I guess, a naive investigation into purely meat sitting on top of our own flesh and body, so without that outer skin being removed. So it was me in my studio, rolling around on the ground, filming myself, putting the meat on top of me and trying to understand really how that sits on top of each other. And this image kind of came in my head, and my works at the base of the day, before I construct them, I have a sense of what I want about them. So it's a compositional construction. So I knew that it was going to be really intense work, having something that's suggestive of the breast, and then the meat in the middle, which could be like kind of organal, like organ's heart. And so, but I don't want to as well necessarily, I don't want to scare anyone away from having a conversation with that work. So it's cropped in a really specific way where it's quite abstracted, so you can still receive and have a conversation with it, and it's not so literal that you can fully get what it is at this, like from surface value. But it was a very simple investigation into flesh, sitting on top of flesh, to start having those discussions about wider context and I guess objectification and othering as well. So it's not recognisable necessarily with any form of identity in sex, but just our self, because the meat is in a position of something we have othered socially, you know, and that's a lot of people's reaction when they come into the space. They are so taken aback from it and thrown from it, and I wanted to put it on yourself and be like, you know, what is the difference in the separation, and really also just reflect once again our value system socially, like our body is just, you know, that's how we're objectively valued as labour force, and meat is in very much the same position as well. But it's also this whole, I don't know, reflection of actually it's nurturing. At the end of the day, it is food. I know some people don't consume it, but it is this whole life cyclical process as well that's going on in it. So there's lots of different threads of discussion within the work, but I don't want to give it to you, and that's why I treat and compose as well how it is. So in terms of my technique and the creation of the work, I think you can even see its evolution within the show actually, from one of the first pieces in my Meat Mound series, which is Seeing Itself, near the back wall. That piece is that was one of the first ones I did at a large scale, coming from working smaller, so working at a 30 by 30 centimetre and then up into a 2.5 metre. So you can kind of see there's a degree of natural neuroticism and obsession with detail, and I just get lost in the work, and so I want as well people to experience, when they come in and experience it physically, I want them to step up close and imagine as well actually the creation of it, because at the end of the day it's very loose, so people assume there's a realism or a hyper-realism within that, but I kind of within my technique also want to deconstruct the idea of categorization, which the meat and abjection deals with in itself. The works don't want to please you, they don't want to be stretched, they don't want to have a glass in front of them or be framed. You've really got to respect the skin, you know, and the body of the canvas itself. And so I love also the regularities in the canvas. So you'll see that there's the odd piece that even actually I've left a wrinkle in also. Like there's the piece, I Will Feed and Clothe You, and you'll see on the left kind of suggestive nipple bit that there is wrinkles in the canvas as well. So I don't want them to be confined or rigid. They want to play, they want to move around in space with you, and they have the potential for that. So I like that, yes, in the show they are flat and they are static and pulled back on the wall, but there is the potential that you could sling them around, you know, and they could move, or their corners could come off and suddenly wrap around you as well. And I like that. I love the irregularity within it, and you just, yeah, respecting each of them, because they're each kind of a being and a portrait in themselves, ironically, even though it's a state of anonymity, they have their own personalities, you know? So yeah, I love that they have the potential to play, and you've got to, yeah, respect that.